You've probably heard this advice just before something important happens, like you're about to attend a job interview or go on a first date. Then someone says to you, just be yourself. In this video, I'm going to explain why just be yourself is often bad advice. Then I'll give you some evidence-based advice which will help you decide on how to present yourself in real situations. Before we critique the whole just be yourself advice, let's be fair to it. There is a reason it sounds wise. There's a decent body of research suggesting that on average, authenticity is positively associated with well-being. Measures of authenticity often include things like authentic living or behaving in ways that are aligned with your values and self-understanding. So in a broad sense, the idea that it's psychologically healthy to feel like I'm living in a way that fits me is not controversial. But here's the problem. The advice, just be yourself, quietly assumes two things. The first thing is that there is one clear, stable, true self that you can simply reveal. The second thing is that revealing this true self will automatically work well across all the different parts of your life. Research from psychology gives us reasons to question both of these assumptions. And there are a few different ways that the just be yourself advice tends to break down, and you've probably experienced at least one of them. Problem one is that the self isn't one fixed thing that you unlock. One of the most useful ideas from social psychology is that the self is dynamic. We don't carry around one single self-concept that plays out the same way in every context. Different situations activate different parts of who we are. Personality research shows something similar. People have stable tendencies or traits, yes, but they also show a wide distribution of personality states across different situations. In other words, you can be you and still behave differently depending on the context. So when someone says, just be yourself, that advice contains a hidden question. Which part of you do they mean in this particular situation? If the situation in question is making you anxious, then the self that shows up first might not be your wisest self. It might be you in threat detection mode. So in some instances, the just be yourself advice becomes show the self-protective version of you and hope for the best. That's unlikely to be very useful guidance. The second problem is that social life requires performance, and that isn't automatically fake. Even if you're clear on your values, social life still involves you making choices about what parts of yourself to show, how to say things, and what behaviour is appropriate given the situation you're in. In other words, social life involves self-presentation. We actively try and manage other people's impressions of us. Psychologists have studied this using the idea of self-monitoring, the tendency to adjust your behaviour to fit situational cues. Self-monitoring is sometimes framed as being fake, but the research on it paints a much more nuanced picture. There are contexts in which being able to read the room and adjust the way you present yourself is socially functional. But there are also contexts in which excessive adjustment can pull you away from your values or leave you feeling inauthentic. So the advice to just be yourself can push people into a false choice. Either I'm completely unfiltered or I'm a fraud. But that's not the real trade-off. A better framing would be, how can I be genuine about what matters to me while adapting my delivery to fit the context I'm in? That's not hypocrisy, that's a social skill. The third problem is that the be yourself advice tends to fall apart the most when the stakes are highest. You'll probably have noticed that people are most likely to hit you with the just be yourself advice just before you enter into a situation that entails high stakes. Perhaps a meeting with your boss about a promotion or a speech at a wedding. Unfortunately, when the stakes are high, many people default to one of two patterns of behaviour. The first entails over-controlling or trying to do something perfectly. The second entails avoidance, withdrawal, being vague or playing it safe. In these situations, the be yourself advice doesn't just fail to give you useful guidance, it can also make you feel worse. If I'm awkward, that must be the real me. So I guess I'm just awkward. But that's not how personality works. You're seeing a state, a particular version of you under pressure, not the sum total of you. So if the advice to just be yourself isn't especially helpful, then what's the fix? Well, here are some upgrades to the advice from research in psychology. First, replace be yourself with be your values. Before a high-stakes interaction like an interview, a date, or a presentation, ask yourself, What do I want to stand for here? What qualities do I want to express? What would I respect in myself afterwards? So for example, in an interview, your values might be competence, honesty, and reliability. So you aim to express those, even if you're nervous. That's being yourself in a way that's actionable. Second, decide what's non-negotiable versus what's adaptable. Here's a simple way of avoiding the trap of thinking, I'm either being the unfiltered or fake version of me. Pick two non-negotiables, the parts of you that you want to keep consistent. For example, I will be curious, I will be honest. Then identify what's adaptable or what you are prepared to change. That might include things like how formal you are and how much information you disclose. For example, let's say you're on a first date. Your non-negotiable might be, I will be humorous, but you might choose to dial down the intensity of your use of humour until you get to know the person a bit better. That's not self-betrayal, it's social calibration. Third, treat the self as something that you build, not something you reveal. If the self is dynamic, then you can develop it. A useful way to approach social situations is to think of them as small experiments and feedback. A practical step you can take here is to pick one small behaviour to practice for a week. Then you review what happened when you practiced that behaviour. Did that behaviour generate positive, negative, or even neutral results? That's how you become more authentically effective, not by finding a final version of yourself, but by shaping your behaviour towards your values. This fits in with the idea that people can show a range of states over time, and that range can shift with experience and skill. Fourth, don't confuse anxiety with intuition or your true self. If you're anxious, your mind and body generate strong signals: tension, urgency, self-consciousness. It's easy to misread that as, this means I'm not being authentic, or this is my gut telling me I don't belong. But often it's simply your nervous system responding to uncertainty. You can address this by naming the feeling. For example, this is anxiety. Then return to your values. Ask yourself, what would I do here if I were 50% calmer? That small shift stops you from letting a temporary state define your identity. Here's the version of that advice I would suggest. Be authentic, not unfiltered. If you can think of other advice you'd like me to critique from a psychological perspective, drop it in the comments section. Be good to yourselves and each other, and I'll see you in the next video.